Hey friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today in this video we are going to be in the kitchen and in the sewing room. In the kitchen we're going to be mixing up a moist, delicious pumpkin oat cake with cream cheese frosting. We'll also then head to the sewing room and make a really cute seasonal crow block that I think you're really going to enjoy. So stick around.
Hey guys, today we're in the kitchen and we are going to be making an oatmeal pumpkin cake, and it sounds really delicious for this beautiful fall day. It is very sunny out. It is nice temperatures, low 70s, upper 60s, and everything is still alive out in the yard, the flowers, the plants. We haven't had our first frost yet. I still have peppers out there. I still have sweet potatoes that we haven't dug. We have tomatoes still growing, lima beans that I'm growing, and this is the first time I've grown them, and I think that they're probably about ready to start picking and harvesting. All the flowers are still going, but of course they're looking a little bit bad right now just because we've had such dry weather. And everything in the garden is doing fine, but it's been really dry here. We have had unusually hot temperatures for the end of September, the 1st of October, upper 80s, close to 90, maybe even making it into the 90s a couple of times lately. But I can feel fall in the air now, and this is a great recipe that I want to share with you. This is a pumpkin cake, but it has oatmeal in it, or oats in it. So it makes it really moist and a little bit more nutritious. So what I have here, and what we're going to get started with, is I have some pumpkin that I had frozen from last year. And this is about the consistency of my home frozen pumpkin. So it's pretty thick. And I am taking 1 cup of pumpkin, and I'm going to add to that half of a cup of water. And this is going to be something that we're going to soak the oats in to get them nice and soft. So I'm going to stir this combination up. Once again, this is just the plain pumpkin. Don't buy the pumpkin pie mix in a can. Just buy plain solid pumpkin. And I have 1 cup of pumpkin, half a cup of water. And so now we have kind of this consistency, kind of baby food consistency. And I'm going to stick this in the microwave, and I'm going to get this to a boil. And after it comes to a boil, I am going to put it on top of our old-fashioned oats. And if you have just quick cooking oats, that's fine too. But I have a cup of oats that we are going to soak in this mixture to get them nice and soft when we add them to our batter. So I'm going to put this in the microwave. I'll be right back. Okay, it took in my microwave about 4 minutes, and I wanted it really nice and bubbly because this is going to have to soften up your oats. So it took 2 minutes on high, and then I stirred it. 1 minute, stirred it, and then another minute, and it came out where it's bubbly. So make sure it's bubbly so you know it came to a boil. So I'm going to add 1 cup of oats. Again, this recipe I'm using, we always use old-fashioned oats, but if you have just the quick oats, fine, you can use those. Now we're going to add this mixture to our oats, and we're going to stir them up, and we are going to let them set while we go ahead and do the other additions to our cake. Make sure we get all that in there. And if we find that this is too thick, we can add a little water to it before we add it to our batter. But we're just going to see how softened we can get these in a few minutes. Usually I let them soak 5 to 10 minutes. So sometimes I will do this ahead of time and then start making the cake. But we're going to go ahead and just set this aside. This is what it looks like. So if you like a pumpkin oatmeal, there you go. So in a bowl, and I'm not even going to use my mixer for this because it's pretty easy to mix up. I'm going to add 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar. And remember, brown sugar packed. I'm going to add a stick of butter. You can substitute a half a cup of shortening or lard, and that would be fine. And this is at room temperature, so it'll be easy to mix. And so we're just going to put this in the bowl and mix it around. Might be easier with the spatula. And I'm just kind of pushing it in and incorporating it. If you had your mixer going, this would whip up pretty quickly and all of it would come together. It would be pretty dry still, but we're going to be adding eggs. And if you had a hand mixer, you could use a hand mixer. But this is such a pretty day. It's fun to cook on these beautiful days. I've even got my jack-o'-lantern apron on. Later on, after I get these going, I've got to get out into the garden and pick peppers. We also have another apple tree that I need to get the apples picked off of. The apples did well. They are ugly apples this year, but they taste really good, so I've been making lots of applesauce. If you're interested in knowing how I make applesauce, I did a video last year, and I use the Instapot. The Instapot is great for making applesauce. I also use a peeler. You can use the hand turning peelers, or you can use the one that attaches to your KitchenAid mixer. And since I make so much of it, I do the KitchenAid mixer. And it makes it go quite fast. Okay, I've just about got this all incorporated, but I'm going to be picking those apples. We've had, like I said, we had several apple trees and they had good apples, but they tasted great, but the outsides had the little black specks on it. We did have a disease on our peaches that was causing them to get a brown spot and fall off, but we were able to pick them a little earlier and just ripen them inside, and they turned out really good. So we had lots of peaches. The apples, we had a really wet spell. I think it was in July or the end of July, 1st of August, and I think then they kind of got that black fungus stuff, and it's not harmful at all to you. It just makes the apples look ugly. You can clean them and clean most of it off, but when you're peeling them, you know, we don't worry about it. So we've been doing lots with apples. I was thinking maybe with this next batch I would dehydrate some, because it's always fun to have some in baked goods, dehydrated apples and baked goods, and they're also great just to snack on. So I'm still good on pie filling that I made last year. I still have some jarred applesauce, but we go through that frozen really quickly because we really like it when it's partially frozen and eating it. So we were all out of the frozen, and I made raspberry, sweet cherry, and one other flavor, strawberry. And they were delicious. We're enjoying them already. So they won't last long. Okay, so this is what this looks like. It's a little sandy, but that's okay. Now we're going to add 2 eggs, 2 large eggs. So I've got that stuff still coming out of the garden. Now our sweet potatoes we planted a little late because my sweet potatoes were taking so long to sprout. I think they took several months to get going, but once they went, they were just all over the place. And I planted them just a little bit later than usual. So we're hoping that they did okay. The area that I planted them this year is an area that had not had plants in before, and so the soil wasn't as good. The vines look amazing, but I'm not sure whether or not the sweet potatoes will be able to grow in the harder soil. So we'll see. And I think that's all we've got going out in the garden. So I still need to take my onions. We've got those in storage, but I need to take those. And the ones that don't last as long, that don't go through the season, I need to go through and chop those up and put those in the freezer. If you do that, if you like to preserve your onions by chopping them and freezing them, just be warned that you need to have really good sealed bags, because they will scent your freezer up. So what I do is I put them in Ziploc plastic bags that are quart size, and then I put those in the ice cream tubs that are from like ice cream stores or the places that buy them in bulk. So they're about this tall, and those go in the freezer filled with those bags of onions. And they are so handy to have. You don't have to cut onions every time you're needing onions to cook with. And so I've got those, and I've been freezing and chopping and slicing the peppers, and they're always so handy. We love having peppers out of the freezer, just like fresh, and cooking with those. So that's what I've got going right now. So I added my 2 eggs. I got my whisk out. I stirred it till it was nice and smooth. So this looks good. Now we are going to add, let me check our pumpkin and see how it's doing. It's getting very firm, softened up. Now, if you feel like yours is not softening up because maybe your pumpkin was thicker than mine, feel free to add just a little bit of water. You know, maybe 1/4 of a cup. It's not going to hurt. In fact, I think I'm going to add about 1/4 of a cup of water. And at this point, I'm just going to use tap water. And they're softening up and everything okay. But it's just quite thick, so I want to just kind of thin it out just a little bit. And that way my cake won't be quite as heavy. This is probably actually 1/4 to 1/8 of a cup. Not that much. So there's what I have. Okay. And let's see here. Now we want to add this mixture to our creamed mixture. So let me give this a creaming, and then let's get it out of this whisk. There we go. And let's add our oats and pumpkin. And you might have noticed that my pumpkin was lighter in color. A lot of times they use different types of squash to make the pumpkins that are sold, the pumpkin that is sold in the stores. And so this was actual pumpkins. And so the pumpkin flesh might look different in person. And they may even color some of theirs, I don't know. But this was just 100% pumpkin from pumpkins that we had last year. And there are certain pumpkins, like pie pumpkins, that are a little sweeter and have more flesh. But you can use any kind of pumpkin when you are making your own pumpkin. It can be the kind you're cutting at your jack-o'-lanterns with. We used to, when we were doing our jack-o'-lanterns, first hollow it out and take a lot of the flesh out and stuff, and then cut the eyes and mouth and nose. And then we had that flesh from the jack-o'-lantern that we would make a pumpkin pie with, so we could have the jack-o'-lantern and a pumpkin pie. And that was always fun. And that's when I was a kid and we're doing that at home. That's just a frugal way of having fun, and it would be a fun thing to do with your kids. because that way they can see that, oh, pumpkin pie, and this is how you make it. So that's a lot of fun. Now this is added, and it's just kind of a loose batter, kind of like a pancake batter. We're going to be adding, I believe, 1.5 cups, yes, 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm not stirring just yet. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon or half a teaspoon of salt. And since I have kosher salt right here, I'm going to add a little bit more, because kosher salt, you can add a little bit more since it's such a big grain. So I use about 3/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt. But if you're using regular salt, half a teaspoon. And if you like it a little more salty, you can add more. Don't stir it yet. I started stirring. Then we're going to add a little bit of cinnamon. Let's add a teaspoon of cinnamon. And let's add a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. Now, if you don't have pumpkin pie spice, you can either take a little bit of cinnamon, and I believe there may be a little tiny bit of cloves. Let me see. Maybe there's nutmeg, maybe some cloves, maybe some ginger. You can look up what's in pumpkin pie spice. I have made my own before, but you can add some that you make, or just add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and maybe just a little bit of nutmeg. So a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. Then we are going to add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And with baking soda, you want to make sure you don't have any lumps. So if there's lumps in there, push those out, because you don't want to bite into one of those when you're eating this cake. That would not be good. I think I have all of my dry ingredients now. I'm going to go ahead and add a teaspoon of vanilla. And if you add more, that's fine. In fact, I'll probably add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And I believe that's everything. Now we can stir. So just mix it until it's all mixed together. You don't want to overmix. You don't want to make it tough. Now this cake can be served with a cream cheese frosting, and that's what I plan on putting on this one. I was also thinking it would probably be a good cake to do the earthquake cake with. And if you don't know what I'm talking about there, you can mix up your cream cheese and some powdered sugar, and then put dollops of that on your batter once it's in the pan, and then just kind of swirl it. When it comes out, it looks like there was an earthquake and your cake went all over the place, but that cream cheese frosting is all through the cake, and it's really delicious. But I'm just going to do the regular cake today. I'm going to take some just regular oil, any kind you like. You could also butter or shortening your pan, or just use your own spray. And just getting it into all the corners. Then let's pour it into the pan. Doesn't that look yummy? Now, if you like chocolate chips, you could sprinkle chocolate chips in your pumpkin. I'm not a big fan of chocolate chips in my pumpkin bread. I like mine just with the cinnamon. White chips might be good, vanilla chips. Cinnamon chips would probably be good. But since we're putting a cream cheese icing on top, we really don't need any of that. So let's get this smoothed out. Just level it out so everything's even. And And I've got my oven set for 350 degrees, so preheat your oven. And then we are going to stick this in the oven and we are going to bake it. And all ovens are different. Mine is usually, it takes a little longer, but it does wonderfully. I love it. We're going to bake for about 35 minutes or until you can take a toothpick and stick it in and it comes out clean. All right, I'll bring you back when it comes out of the oven. And this is just coming out of the oven, nice and hot. And when you touch it, it's fairly firm, so it's not raw in the middle. And we'll just let it cool here until it's completely cool. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and make the cream cheese frosting. And that way, once this is cool, we'll have it and we'll just frost the cake. Okay, to make cream cheese frosting, I just take a half a stick of butter. And some recipes call for more, but I just find I can't tell a difference. So I'm just going to keep it a half a stick. And then we want an 8-ounce block of cream cheese. And I've had this out several hours, but it's still fairly firm. But if you can have it room temperature, I think it'll be fine. We'll just get it warmed up here in the mixer. And then we'll just turn this on low to get it started. Okay, that looks like it's mixing up real well. I'm going to go ahead and add a teaspoon or 2 of vanilla. That would be 2 teaspoons. Okay, so once that is all whipped together and there's no more separation, I'm just going to scrape the sides. And we're going to start off, and I'm just going to add a half a cup of powdered sugar first. We're just going to get it incorporated. Or a heaping half a cup. And do this slowly. And then once that one's incorporated, we can add about a cup. So there's half a cup. There's another half a cup. So far we added a half a cup and then a cup. So we've got 1.5 cups so far. And then we're going to scrape down the sides. And let's add another cup. And let's mix. Okay, so we have 2.5 cups of powdered sugar right now. And at any time, if it is the consistency you like, you can stop. Let me taste it and see if the more powdered sugar you add, the sweeter it becomes and less cream cheese flavor. So that is a really good tasting frosting right there. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to add another half a cup just to make it a little more stable. And I think for me, this is going to be fine. Since this is not a cake that is going to be requiring to do layers and things like that, and it's just in a 13 by 9 inch pan, I don't need to worry about it being a certain thickness or anything because it's just going to be going on the cake and not stuck to the sides where it could start melting and stuff like that. My cream cheese, like I said, was still cool, but it was softer. But you could add 4 to 4.5 cups of powdered sugar to this, depending on how thick you need it. Again, if you're going to refrigerate it, it will thicken up quite a bit. If it's going to not be refrigerated, it will soften up. So just to know that. So let me get this cleaned up, and we're going to set this aside until the cake is cooled. Okay, our cake is cooled and our icing came out of the refrigerator and it's quite firm. I gave it a few stirs, but it's going to be fine. So I'm going to put a bunch of it on the cake. And by the way, it does taste delicious. I did have to taste it. And we'll just spread that out. And I'm anxious to take a bite of this cake. It looks so good. And just give this a quick frost. And you can use any amount if you don't like very much of it on your cake. You could even thin it down just a little bit and kind of just make a little light frosting for it. But I think this is about the perfect amount. Like that. And I've got my little fall leaves. My little sprinkles. That will make it so cute. And there we go. Now I think we need to give it a try. All right, let's see what we're gonna do here. Let's go over here. Doesn't that look good? Left a little piece in here. Okay. Let me flip the camera around and we'll taste test this. All right, let's give it a taste. It looks really good. That is really moist. Between the oatmeal and the pumpkin, we've got a very moist cake. Really good flavor. Really good flavor. I think that extra water was good. So be sure we'll just increase that water. And again, if your pumpkin is some from your freezer and it's not as thick, that's fine. But if you're using the canned pumpkin, which is very thick, or your pumpkin is thick, you'll probably need a little more than half a cup of water with it. But this is really good. I could just sit here. Well, I was gonna say eat the whole cake, but probably not the whole cake. But this one, I certainly can finish off easily. I hope you get a chance to try this for yourself. It is super delicious, super moist, and it's perfect for fall. And it's a little bit healthy. I hope to see you back here soon. Bye-bye. Hey friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today we are in the sewing room and I'm going to show you how to make this really cute old black crow quilt block, and it's going to be a 10-inch finished block. That means when we get finished sewing it, it will be 10.5 inches, but once we put it into any kind of project, it will be 10 inches. And it'll be the perfect size to coordinate with some of the other fall blocks that I've been sharing with you. We have the leaf block that's a 10-inch. We have the squirrel block that's a 10-inch. We also have the 4-inch finished acorns that can easily be put together to make a 10-inch block. We also have the pumpkins that were in our October dish mat of the month that are 10 inches tall, and you can easily add a border around them to use them as a 10-inch block. But after we make this block, I'm going to show you what I am doing with this crow block. So it's a fun one to make, not very difficult at all. We have one tiny piece, and it is just this little piece right here underneath the beak. And if you don't get it perfect, it's okay. It won't show up enough to cause you any grief. But everything else is nice and large, and I did not have to put starch on my fabric before I cut it because this is a larger block with larger pieces. I usually just do that when I am making those smaller blocks. So it's just been cut out. All of my fabric has been labeled with my letter tiles. If you're interested in these free letter tiles, I have a PDF in a video, and I believe it was the one with the little acorn on it, but I'll just link it in the description box below. So if you want these, you can go there and download the printout, and then you can print them on cardstock or paper or laminate them, whatever you want to do to use them. But they come in really handy, especially when you're making any of my blocks, because I always put letters on the blocks so that we can identify the cuts. If you are new to my channel, the pattern may be a little different than what you've seen before, and I just share the cuts and a diagram of the piece placements. I don't write out the instructions because I do not have time to do all of that, and I'm not a pattern writer, and if I were to write those patterns, it would take me a long time and you'd never get a quilt block. So I am just writing out your cut sizes, and then you can watch the tutorial if you're unable to put it together just by looking at it. A lot of times people who have been quilting for a long time can look at it and put it together. Sometimes there's something a little different in the piecing that they need to watch the video on, especially when there's half square triangles that you're making, or some of the where you put the corners, the snowballed corners on a bigger block. Sometimes you need to see exactly how that's done because it's not real clear in the directions or in the cuts. So if you can do this without watching the video, that is wonderful. But it's always fun to watch the video too. So let's get this put together. Now I have all the cut sizes listed, and it tells what part of the body it is. So basically you've got 4 fabrics, and they're indicated by the different shade of gray. And I have the number that you need of each cut size and then the letters. And so that's why I have my board all laid out. This is of course the crow print, the beak, the background, and the legs right here. So I've got those 4 different fabrics, and they're all laid out ready to be put together. So when we look at this pattern, and I'll bring you down. When we look at this pattern, we can decide how we want to put it together. And the first thing that you will notice is this whole section right here can be put together. This whole section right here is easy to piece together, and then this section down here is easy to piece together. And if you piece those 3 pieces, then you can just put them all 3 together. So we can start anywhere on here and do each of these sections, and then at the end put all 3 together. And I don't know, let's just start at the top, okay? Now this is something that probably would be a little more difficult to look at and understand what I did here it without seeing the tutorial, because this is a little different. It's not just a half square triangle or a putting a block or a square piece of fabric with a snowball corner. I do it a little different on this one. So this H piece is a little different. So you'll probably need to see what I'm doing there. But basically, let's just get started. Let's get A and I first. And I'm going to move this board over to the side. Okay, now we can see a little bit better here. We've got it laid out. So we're going to take A and I. This is I, this is A. And what we need to do to piece these together is to lay the I piece at a 90-degree angle, matching up corners. Now we're going to see which way works. So if you do it this way, and you fold it back, we have the correct angle. So this is the way we're going to lay the background. We're going to lay it going down. Now, if you were to lay it going up like this, what you would get would be an angle that's going the opposite direction, and that's not what we want. So we'll just take this piece here, lay it right on top of A, match up here and here, and we can put a pin in it. And I'll put a pin up in this corner, and I'll put a pin down in this corner. And that way when we stitch it, we won't have to move the pins. And let's see if I can get that laid in there better. There we go. So then we're going to take a straight edge, and we are going to draw, and I'm going to show you here, this corner right here, we need to mark. It is right there, okay? So we need to take and draw a line from this corner to that line going off the edge there. So let's just draw that. And this is a friction pin, and it will erase with heat, but this is going to be a seam line. You just don't want to use anything that will bleed through your fabric. A pencil would be fine on this. Now I'm just going to go to the sewing machine and sew right there, and I'll bring you right back. And here's our piece. I went ahead and ironed it back, and you want to make sure these lines are going straight on the sides, okay? And we have our back corner that we can cut off. If you wanted to save this and use it for a half square triangle, you could just stitch about 1/2 inch away from that other seam and then cut between the two seams, and this would already be stitched for a half square triangle, but I'm not going to keep that today. So we have this piece right here. Now we're going to add G. So we're not going to add H yet. H is the last piece on this strip. We're going to do G, which is the beak. And it is a rectangle, and you'll notice that when you if you try to put it this way, it's going to be too short. But if you put it this way, you'll find that it matches. And we're going to match up those edges and just sew 1/4 inch away. And you can pin this if you need to. And there we have that piece sewn on, and I just pressed it the same direction I pressed this one. There's nothing that it's going to match up with, so it doesn't make any difference because there's no seams on either one that we have to avoid being too thick. So now what I want to do is I want to get piece H. And with piece H, now that it's sewn on, we're going to lay this piece, and this is a square, so it doesn't matter which direction you lay it. But as you see, it overlaps onto this blue, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to pin that if you need to. Just make sure you have matched. You want to make sure you match it exactly right here and right here. That's where you're matching it, okay? And we're going to be drawing a line this direction, so I'm just going to put a pin over here, and I'll put a pin over here. Then we're going to draw a line again, a diagonal line, using a straight edge and a pencil or something erasable. and we're going to sew right on that line. And I've sewn it right on that line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it back, and you want to make sure that it covers that back triangle. And if it does, you can trim it off 1/4 inch away from the seam. And then I will take that in a few minutes and I will press it. We now have the top row, so we can set that right there. And let's go ahead and do the middle row. We're going to start with piece C and we're going to work our way out. Piece C is the biggest piece. And piece C is a square, so it doesn't matter which way you turn it. We're going to take a K and an M. And so M is going to go down this corner. Now you can turn this whichever way you want. If you want it to go the other way, it would just be the opposite. There we go, just like that. And again, we are going to take and we are going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on this one. It's going the same direction as this line, and from corner to corner on this one. Now on this one right here, since it's such a big one, I'm going to save this back piece here. So I'm going to do another stitch about 1/2 inch away, and I'll show you how I cut that. So I'm going to sew on this line and this line. And remember, if you need to pin, be sure you pin. All right, I stitched on the diagonal line and on the diagonal line, and then I did about 1/2 inch above that diagonal line. And now I'm just going to cut right between, so both of them have about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now this extra piece right here is just a 1/2 square triangle that I can use on another project. I've got several that I've saved, and it'll be fun to make something with them. So I just need to fold those back, this one right here, and I'm going to give these a good press. And there we have that piece. Now on this one, let's see, I've got a little string there. On this one, I pressed toward the crow fabric because up here on the neck, I pressed away. I pressed toward the background. Now when we go to match these two lines right here, they aren't going to be laying right on top of each other, but the seam allowance will be away from each other so that we don't have to worry about it over, getting too bulky in places. So that's what I did there. And down here, there's nothing that's going to meet, so it's whatever way you want to press it down here. Now we are ready for this piece right here, J, and then we have this tiny little piece, B. So this is our smallest block right here. This is a 3/4 inch square. And we're going to put it right sides together in the upper right-hand corner of J, okay? Now, this is pretty small, and some people find that taking a little bit of glue, and my glue's kind of bulky here. I've got my smaller ones in another area. And since this corner right up here, do you see how I've just put glue in this corner right here? This corner right here is going to be cut off. So if we go ahead and stick that on with the glue and then hit it with a hot iron or just let it dry by itself, that will hold it in place and we won't have to worry about pins. So that will dry. And if you want to hurry it up, you can just hit it with some heat before you use your friction pin. But I think it will be fine. So, and I'm used to sewing these smaller blocks, so I'm going to go ahead and just do it like this. Now I just need to sew right on this line, and since it's such a small piece, I'm going to sew just right next to it on the upper side toward the waist part. That way it can overcome this bulk of the fabric and it can reach, these points can touch. So just on the upper side of that line, so, and you're just sewing right next to it. Okay, I've sewn right above it, so when I press it, there's plenty of room there, and it covers nicely, so I can trim that 1/4 inch away, and I'll press that down. Okay, there's our little piece right there. That's the hard little piece that we had to sew. Now what we're going to do is put these two together, right sides together, and again, pin if you need to, 1/4 inch away from this edge. Sew it right there. All right, so I sewed that on, and I just press toward the crow. That way it won't be putting too much bulk behind that tiny little piece right there. So we've got that one done. Now we need to add this side right here. We need D and N. Let's just start from the bottom, D and N. And so these are 2 squares. We're going to put them right sides together. We are going to draw a line right down the middle. And we're going to sew right on that line. Okay, I've sewn right on the line, and we can choose one side or the other, whichever one works the best, I guess, and fold that back. And so that one works, so we'll just cut 1/4 inch away from that seam line. And we have this piece right here, D and N, right there. Okay, now we need D and L. So I have another D and L. So what we're going to do here is, let's just move this right here. Let's just lay L just like it's going. D is going to be on the bottom here, and just line up the bottom and the sides. And this time we need a line going this way. So what we're going to do is we are going to draw a line from corner to corner going this direction. And sew directly on that line. And here we have it. We'll fold it back, and it covers it up nicely. Trim 1/4 inch away from that seam. And press. All right, now we can put these 2 pieces together, and it doesn't matter which direction you press. There's nothing meeting any of these right here, so you can press whichever way you want. So we need to line this up the way it looks right here. So triangle in the bottom left corner, triangle, or the crow's fabric in the bottom left corner, crow's fabric in the bottom left corner. And then we'll just put them wrong sides together and stitch 1/4 inch away from the edge. And there it is, and it's been pressed, and we are ready to put it on the body. So when we line this up and we match our top edges and our bottom edges, you are going to see that this does not match up, and that is okay, because once we get our 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides, they will match up. So what we're going to do is we are going to put right sides together, and I'm going to go ahead and match the edges or the ends of both fabrics together. And then mine is pretty good. If you had one side that was looser and had extra fabric, that would go down toward your feed dogs. Your feed dogs are at the base of your sewing machine, so that'll go down. Now, I'm going to go ahead and check to see if my 1/4 inch seam allowance will make those 2 lines end up intersecting. So what I like to do is just take a pin, and I take this seam and I figure out where is 1/4 inch. Now, if it's hard for you to eyeball it, that's okay. We can always use a ruler. And this one has 1/4 inch edge on it. And so here's my seam. Here's a 1/4 inch. So if I just put it right there, poke it all the way through, open it up. Let's see where we come. It looks like it's right on that seam. I don't know if you can see it. Right there. So it is going to match up. So you might put a pin right near there so that it will not move on you. Now let's sew a 1/4 inch away from that top edge. All right, let's take a look. That looks perfect right there. And if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. You can just take and remove a couple of stitches right in this area and then try to move it around to get it to the right spot. That's okay, but don't worry if it's not perfect. Once you get it into a project, no one's going to notice. So that looks good. I'm going to give it a press. Let's see. I'll just press it toward the crow body. I don't think anything. Nope, nothing's matching. Now we have the top part, the body, and we need this bottom part here. So let's set this up here and let's work on this last section. We need O and F. Now I'm just starting off with one F. There are two. And if you have directional fabric, remember to check that. And I am just going to put F right here and sew a 1/4 inch away. And we can open it up. Just finger press it for right now because we'll press all of this at once. Now we need the letter P. And this is another really small piece. Once we get it sewn on here, it's not going to be very much showing at all. Let's see, this is actually a 3/4 inch piece. So it's only going to have 1/2 inch, no, actually a 1/4 inch showing once it's all pieced in. So it's going to be a thin sliver of fabric. So just lay it right sides together and we're going to sew again a 1/4 inch away from the edge. And when we open it up, we've got a tiny piece there. And we're going to add another F, the other leg. And so a 1/4 inch away from the edge. Remember, right sides together. And there we have that right there. See that little tiny sliver of a piece? I went ahead and pressed, and I'm just pressing all in one direction because the legs and that piece between the legs, it's not enough to hold the more than one seam allowance. So just press them all in one direction. It doesn't matter which direction. Now we're going to get Q and E. And these are our last two pieces. And I'm going to put these together before I attach them to this. So here is Q and here is E. Now we're going to have a diagonal again, so we need to figure out which way we need to turn our fabric Q. So here it is going down, the long way going down. And if we do that, this is the angle that we get. And this angle right here is the opposite. So we need to do it so that it's sticking up at the top. So match up the bottom edge and the side with your crow fabric right here. And then when we sew it this way, we will see that it's going to go the right angle. Okay, so I am going to mark first of all. Remember, we look for that edge right there and mark where that is so we can see it. Then we're going to take our straight edge and we are going to go from corner to that marked area right off the edge. And then we're going to take it to our sewing machine and sew right on the line. And remember, if you need to pin, be sure you do so. Okay, I went ahead and I pressed it. And when I press it, these edges stay nice and even. and they're going straight. So we can just trim off that back corner 1/4 inch away from our seam that we sewed. And there we have that. Now we just need to make sure we've got everything going in the right direction. And this is going to be going like that. So right sides together. So a 1/4 inch away from the edge. And I went ahead and pressed it, and I went ahead and just had the seam allowances all going that direction. This one's going this direction. It doesn't matter either which direction it goes. And now we're ready to put these 3 together, and then we will be done. So exciting. So what we're going to do is let's just start at the top. And again, when you lay these matching edges to edges, this looks like it's not going to work, but it is, because once we go a 1/4 inch away from the edge on both sides, it should match. So we're going to match the end strips together. Make sure they're nice and even. And then if you had extra fabric, that's the side that will go toward your feed dogs. Mine looks good. Now before I put another pin in it, I'm going to see if it's matching. So I've got a 1/4 inch ruler here. It's 1/4 inch away from that edge. I'm going to bring you down. So this little, you can't see it very well, but there's a blue line, and that's a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to lay that edge of that 1/4 inch right on the edge of my block. And then I'm going to take a pin, and this is the seam right here. So right where that seam intersects where that edge is, right there, I put a pin, pull it, push it forward, and we can see on the back, this one has the seam there. We are right on the spot. So I am just going to put this one right there, and now take it to my sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch away from that edge. All right, press that back, and it matched up nicely, just right. And you can see that little tiny piece right there, and it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. If you didn't want to put that little triangle there, you don't have to. It would make his head just a little bit squarer there, but it doesn't make a huge difference, that tiny little piece, but it does round it off just a little bit. So before I press this, let's go ahead and add this bottom piece. So we're going to right sides together, match up the edges, this side and this side. And if you find your pieces are not matching up very well, you probably want to check your 1/4 inch seam allowance to see if it is accurate, because this piece right here has a lot of seams, and if your 1/4 inch seam allowance is not accurate, just a little bit off will cause possibly a 1/4 to a 1/2 of an inch, depending on how far it's off. So just if you aren't coming up with edges that meet, check that to make sure you are doing an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. And let's see, there's nothing on this one that's matching, so we don't have to worry about anything matching up. So I'll just put 3 pins. And now I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch away from the edge. If there was something loose, if one side was looser than the other, that would go toward my feed dogs. And there he is, all pressed up, and he just looks wonderful. And you can definitely, trim your block up to be a 10.5 inch square, and that way you'll have all these edges nice and straight. Now, he isn't really a black one. He's actually a dark blue, because it's the fabric collection that I was using. It didn't have another black, because I've already made one crow, and I'm going to show you what I did with it, because this is something that you might want to make as well. So I took my crow block, and here's the black version, and I put him with our October dish mat of the month pattern. I just made the blocks. I did add a sawtooth star here because there was enough room for a 4-inch finish sawtooth star, and I thought it would balance out with our crow a little bit. But when I just sewed him directly to those 3 blocks, I thought it looked really cute. Now, so far, I've just got the 4 blocks pieced together. I still am going to put a border of this background fabric up here, probably about a, whatever this thickness is, probably a 1-inch border or so up here and down here and on the sides. That way it'll just kind of frame it in and let it show that it's finished. Then I will put another kind of border. Whether I do a solid border or a pieced border, I'm not sure. But I will do that, and I will show you probably during my next Fat Quarter box opening, the Sew Sampler subscription. And so that will be a good time for you to see if I get it done. I hope to get it done, what this looks like finished. So if that's something you want to do, I will link this video on how to make these blocks right here in the description box below, and you can go there and get the pattern in the description box below that video. And then you'll just need to make, if you want to add this star, just make a 4-inch finished sawtooth star. And I'm sure that you can find a free pattern out there on that. If not, maybe we'll have to make some sawtooth stars sometime. So here it is. I hope you like it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. Also, right now, YouTube is doing something with the smaller channels, and it's trying to help support those smaller channels and give them a little bit of a push so that they can have a bigger audience. And if you look below this video, you're going to see a hype button. It'll be down with the share buttons, and what you'll do is you'll just click on that. It doesn't cost you anything or do anything. It just lets YouTube know that you enjoyed this video and you are giving it some hype. And you can do any hype on a video that is less than 7 days old. So after 7 days of this video being out, you can no longer hype it. The button will disappear. But if you will do that, that will help my channel out a lot, and I really appreciate it. So I hope you have a great week, and as always, I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.